And I thank folks who have stuck around during this first hour of the meeting, hour plus of the meeting. I know we have some guests here for this next one. Item number 11.1, Proclamation 26-005, honoring historic Beech Ridge Speedway. I'm going to hand it over to Councilor Anderson.
Yep, thank you, Corey. So this actually came forward, I want to say last September, when Denise Hamilton shared that there was a plan to put a memorial at Beech Ridge Speedway to honor the history that her husband Warren had designed. And I said, well, once it's up and running, let's make sure that we recognize it, the history, and have a proclamation. And so a few months later, maybe 2 months ago, she emailed me reminding me that this was an idea that I had. And so to stick to it and to support her and the history of our town, I felt like it was important that we honor our history. I think all of us, as we've done our councilor conversations, one of the themes we keep hearing is people really want to make sure that we do honor the history in Scarborough. And this particular landmark that we're honoring tonight, as we'll see in a short video and in the proclamation, clearly has made a significant impact on our community. And I know a lot of people are sad to see it have gone away, but I'm very thankful to Warren and Denise and their family for trying to preserve what they can by putting that memorial in place. So I think Liam's going to play a little bit of a video. Okay.
Denise Hamilton. So the video that is going to be shown is just a couple minutes long. It's from when Warren's grandfather, J.B. McConnell, who built Beech Ridge Speedway when he was being inducted into the New England Racers Hall of Fame, which was about, 9 months after he passed away. So this was in 2009 was when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. So enjoy the video.
Wanted to induct J.B. McConnell into the New York Hall of Fame. He was born in 1912, and sadly, he died December 4th, 2008. He was 96 years old, but he was active right up till last summer when he rode in the Beech. He started auto racing in Maine. Sure, there was racing at local fairgrounds, but he was the first person to organize racers and to provide a steady place for them to come. He moved to southern Maine from Nova Scotia at an early age and worked on aircraft at the Scarborough Airport, so he was familiar with the area. He worked briefly in Massachusetts, but returned to Maine at the end of World War II and started a timber and sawmill. And through his connections, he started trading land, and he ended up with land that was at Two Rock Roads and Holmes Road, and it was 35 acres, and it was formerly known as the Ling Raceway, and they raced horses on it years before, but it was all overgrown, and he tried to convince local bankers to financing, and they thought he was crazy. So he had the construction equipment, so he worked all of 1948 to configure the track, to build the grandstands, and it opened on Memorial Day 1949. It was a sunny, dusty, and dirty day, but the fans came and the cars came. The season continued, and it ebbed and flowed, but it was considered a success. One fan, George Damon, was so excited by this first season that he later built Oxford Plains Speedway. So now J.B. McConnell is now responsible for 2 speedways in Maine. In the fall of 1949, this is after he got Beech Ridge going, he also helped rework the horse track at Unity Fairgrounds into Unity Raceway, a track still operating today. That's track number 3. He also helped Tom Gilmet build a paved track in Sanford, Maine. That was track number 4. That's no longer running, but he was responsible for helping it get off the ground. In the mid-60s, he helped the Arundel Speedway get up and running, mostly by bringing his racers down to the racetrack. That's track number 5. He also gave Charlie Elliott $10,000 to help finish paving Star Speedway in New Hampshire. That's track number 6. So he was very instrumental in all these tracks. Believe it or not, J.B. McConnell reached his 60s in the 70s. And he was looking to sell Beech Ridge Motor Speedway. Because of its proximity to the Maine Turnpike, Portland, and the coastal area, there was high demand for the property, but nobody wanted it as a racetrack. Some people wanted to put a drug depot in there, and he refused to sell to these people. He later sold it for a lot less money than he could have got for it to Calvin Reynolds, who had raced at the racetrack and owned a motorcycle shop not too far away. So it stayed a racetrack. The track, another racer.
Greet you.
All right, I think we're going to pause it there. And so I'm going to read a proclamation, and I also just want to recognize Denise for her partnership in helping put this together. And I think after we read it, we'll open it up for public comment if anybody wants to say anything. So this is Town of Scarborough, Maine, Proclamation 26-005, honoring historic Beech Ridge Speedway. Be it resolved by the Council of the Town of Scarborough, Maine, and Town Council assembled that whereas James J.B. McConnell had a dream, logging was his trade, but racing was his passion. He traveled up and down the New England coast promoting races, but envisioned building a permanent track in Maine. And whereas Mr. McConnell purchased land on Holmes Road and Two Rod Road, and without outside investors, recruited his logging crew to clear the land and build what would become one of Maine's most iconic motorsports venues. And whereas construction of the Beech Ridge Speedway began in 1948, and the 1/3 mile oval officially opened on May 20th, 1949, launching more than 70 years of racing tradition in Scarborough. And whereas in 1949, J.B. McConnell formed the Maine State Stock Car Racing Association, an organization that lasted for 35 years. J.B. served as its president for 4 terms, and whereas Mr. McConnell was inducted into Maine Vintage Race Car Association Hall of Fame Class of 2004, and the New England Auto Racers Hall of Fame Class of 2009, and whereas the McConnell family supported every aspect of the Speedway's operations, from maintaining the track and buildings to running concessions and supporting race day activities, representing a multi-generational commitment that helps sustain the Speedway. And whereas Warren Wardy Hamilton, Mr. McConnell's son-in-law, demonstrated decades of dedication to the Speedway and the racing community, continuing his service until his passing in 2013. And whereas Beech Ridge Speedway became one of Maine's most recognized short tracks, hosting countless racing events, helping develop drivers and bringing together racers, crews, officials, volunteers, sponsors, and fans from across New England. And whereas the Speedway contributed significantly to Scarborough's cultural, recreational, and economic vitality by attracting visitors, supporting local businesses, and creating lasting traditions and community connections across generations. And whereas Beech Ridge Speedway became a cherished landmark and an enduring part of Scarborough's identity, preserving the traditions of grassroots motorsports in Maine and leaving a lasting legacy. And whereas the town recognizes the continued efforts of family, community members, and supporters to preserve and commemorate the history and legacy of Beech Ridge Speedway, and now therefore be it proclaimed that the Town Council of Scarborough, Maine hereby honors the history, legacy, and impact of Beech Ridge Speedway and expresses our deep appreciation to all individuals and families whose dedication made it a treasured institution in the community. Signed and dated the 19th day of August 2026 on behalf of the Scarborough Town Council and Town Manager.
Thanks, John. So before we make it totally official and have a council vote, I will open it up for public comment. Everyone knows the rules, and I'm assuming if you're here with Denise, you'll be really good about staying under 3 minutes because she always nails it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Warren Hamilton. Excuse me. Warren Hamilton, Two Rod Road. I'd like to thank John for that and the rest of you for acknowledging it. Got a frog in my throat. To say that racing was in my blood is an understatement. I was born in 1957 as the grandson of Jim J.B. McConnell. I started going to Beech Ridge with my parents when I was 17 months old. To say that, I was hooked on that for life. Growing up, I spent a lot of time bugging my grandfather at the racetrack and kind of being a pain in his butt. He introduced me to a local sign painter named Joe Tufts from out of, some of you know him, used to be in Dunston, recently passed away. My grandfather told Joe about some of the work I had been doing, and Joe hired me to work for him after school and weekends. And I worked for him quite some time and eventually went off on my own. That introduction basically changed the course of my life. Through sign painting graphics, I met countless race car drivers and team owners and built a lifelong career, all because of the 1/3 mile oval in Scarborough, that my grandfather's dream. In 2005, I moved to North Carolina to work for my good friend Andy Santerre. Together with Andy, we decided that after a year or so, we were paying too much for race car graphics. So Andy and I opened up what became ASM Graphics. And also while I was there, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of great people in racing, including Kenny Schrader, Michael Waltrip, Travis Pastrana, Martin Truex, and Mark Martin. ASM Graphics still continues today here in Scarborough, and Beech Ridge gave me something even more than important than that. In 2004, I met my wife, Denise, at the racetrack. Her son was racing there, and I was asked to do the graphics on their cars. One thing led to another, and more than 20 years later, here we are. Beech Ridge was very good to me. It gave me a career, lifelong friendships, incredible experiences, and ultimately, my wife and my family. I really don't know what I'd be doing today if it wasn't for that 1/3 mile oval in Scarborough that my grandfather built. I'm very proud of what JB created, of the generations who made Beech Ridge what it became. On behalf of my family, thank you for recognizing Beech Ridge Speedway as an important place it will always hold in Scarborough's history. I'd like to thank Scott for getting up and speaking this evening, and I encourage you all to vote for Denise. I know her pretty well, and she'll do a very good job. She's very thorough, she does her research, and she knows what she's talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. I want to thank the council for recognizing the monument, the beautiful monument that was built on the Speedway property. And we can't thank Denise and Warren enough for all the hard work and dedication they've done to do this. Bear with me a little bit. I can speak for a lot of people that racetrack meant a lot to a lot of fans, racing competitors, their race teams, and families. It was their second home that holds a lot of memories. And this monument couldn't have been done without Denise and Warren Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how many of you may have looked at that beautiful monument. I'm Bruce Elder, by the way, and I was one of those guys that as a sophomore in high school in 1960, I went to Beech Ridge and I was hooked, just took one time. And I had the honor of spending a lifetime there in various capacities. There are two things that I think a lot of young people might not know just what it is that are on the monument that I think is beautiful. One is the MSSCRA. And that was Jim McConnell's idea, and it was unique across the country. In fact, Dick Berggren, who was the editor of Stock Car Racing Magazine, wrote an article about that some years ago. That association sanctioned the races at Beech Ridge from the 50s all the way up to 1990. And that involved making the rules and doing the payoff. And that's very unique. And that was in cooperation with the track owner. Okay, and it went through up through to Ralph Cusack when finally it became a NASCAR sanctioned track. The other thing, it's mentioned that people who started their career at Beech Ridge on the scripture there on it, that they went to the highest level in racing in America. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, at one time, of the 43 teams at the cup level in NASCAR, 3 of the crew chiefs were from Maine, whose career actually started at Beech Ridge. And that's pretty amazing for a little state like Maine. NASCAR is countrywide. To at one time, 3 of the crew chiefs, and they weren't just for just anybody, Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. were 2 of them, and I don't remember the third one. But those people were Slugger Labby, who was, I think, from Saco, had a career at Beech Ridge with Ray Jansen and then with Dick McCabe. It was Pete Rondo. Pete Rondo was a crew chief for Dale Earnhardt Jr. at the time. And the other one was Don Latat's son, Steve Latat, who is now a commentator for a lot of the NASCAR races. So just a few things that younger people might not have realized. So, and thank you so much for honoring the Speedway and what Jim's amazing career was.
Thank you.
Kind of short. Here we go. Hi, everyone. I am Paige Woods, and I am the founder of Maine's Lost Speedways. And I just wrote a little speech, and I want to thank Denise and Warren Hamilton for really putting in a lot of legwork with this monument and honoring our heritage of racing here. Much appreciated. Many places can be considered ordinary, but Beech Ridge Speedway was anything but. For 72 years, Beech Ridge was not just a staple in Maine racing, but in the lives of those who walked the grounds since May of 1949. 72 years of drivers building legendary careers, of love stories that began at the track that grew into families. Generations of drivers, owners, and fans dedicating their summers to sharing something truly amazing. When I attended the Beech Ridge Car Show a few years ago, I witnessed something that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Families gathered in spots that held special meaning to them. Couples took photos in places where they first met. People came together to remember the moments and the memories that they had made as they say goodbye to a place that they would forever be homesick for. Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. 72 years of speed, millions of laps, countless victories, heartbreaks, friendships, and memories that will last forever. Names like Ralph Cusack, Dick Wolstenhume, Dick Garrett, Bob and Phil Libby, Dave Kudemarsh, Pete Peterson, Bob Babb, Gardner Levitt, Homer Drew, Dave Darvo, and so many others all built the foundation of an oval and shared the passion for racing, and their names will be etched in history forever. Some would argue that home is a place or a feeling, but for 72 years, Beech Ridge was both. It was a place where drivers and fans and volunteers gathered on common ground, and it was a place to look forward to and to cherish it. It was a place where some fell in love with racing for the first time or where they just fell in love. For 72 years, walking through the gates of Beech Ridge was a feeling of being home. So let's remember Beech Ridge for all that it gave us, the memories, the friendships, the love stories, the generations of people who made it what it was, and a love for a place so profound that it altered our lives forever. Thank you to J.B. McConnell for building the 4 turns that would be called Beech Ridge Speedway, building the foundation and paving the way for Maine auto racing. And once this is over with, it's not about the races or the money won, it's the memories that remain.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Thank you. I'm dealing with a sore hip. Stephen Pellerin, live in Gorham, but I grew up at Beech Ridge Speedway, like a lot of the people here. And I wanted to just mention, when we embrace history, it adds a little bit of depth and dimension to our lives. Helps us to realize where we've been and where we're going. And Beech Ridge Speedway, the relevance of the track is going to be remembered for many years in motorsports. For the last 3-4 decades, I have labored to promote and preserve the relevance of Maine motorsports history, but in particular that of Beech Ridge Speedway. And for my efforts last year, I was very humbly surprised with an induction as the first historian into the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame as such. In 2022, I met, after the closure of the track, I met with a contracted employee from the Department of the Interior sent here in conjunction with the State of Maine's Historic Commission to do undertake an assessment of Beech Ridge for a historical report. And we met on 3 occasions. They came from Syracuse, New York, and they were not so much interested in the history, but how the track came, how the track came to be, its amenities, its size, its grandstands, when the concessions changed. And as such, I provided them with pictures of the track when it was dirt, the track when it was paved, etc. And they put together a nice report, which I gave to Warren and Denise. A copy has gone to the State of Maine for the Historical Commission, and a copy is going to the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian. So Beech Ridge will live on. But I wanted to mention just one quick story about Mr. McConnell. And in a hot night in July of 1955, the constables in Orchard Beach received a call of a disturbance on the beach. So they headed down there, and they found, as they got through the crowd, there was a young Mr. McConnell who'd set up a couple of ramps on either end of about a half mile and was taking his sports car back and forth and promoting ramp racing on the beach, which was being held in conjunction at the track on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. JB was promptly arrested by the police, brought up to the lockup, charged with disturbing the peace and having a gathering without a permit. His bail was paid for by the Maine State Stock Car Association. When they met in 1949 at the Scarborough Rod and Gun Club to form the association, he met a young Dick Garrett, and he hired Dick to be his first racing champion. And Dick was the first recognized racing champion. I'm running over for a second, if you'll forgive me. Dick was the first recognized racing champion in the state of Maine, driving a 1937 front-wheel drive Cord for J.B. McConnell. And Dick, at age 9, contracted polio, walked with a very heavy limp, but found that he could drive a race car. And in 1950 and 51, he won the title at Beech Ridge. And he also, in 1951, as well as Beech Ridge, won a championship at Lewiston Fairgrounds, Sanford Speedway, Dover, New Hampshire, West Haven, Massachusetts, all with polio. And later that year, under a national poll of UPI and Associated Press sports writers, of a group of 350 drivers in the United States, Dick Garrett out of Scarborough was voted 14th overall. So the people and the legends and things that were made at Beech Ridge will live on forever. Thank you for the pleasure of your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else for this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll turn it back to the council. Do we have a motion to formally approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll just add, I think there's been multiple people tonight have eloquently spoken about the importance of honoring and kind of keeping our history. And it's more important than ever as the town continues to grow and change. I know I definitely miss the days when we would take our kids there to the Speedway, and we used to joke that our minivan, which was well over 100,000 miles and was getting more and more beaten up that we were eventually going to send it off into retirement by entering it into Day of Destruction or something like that. But alas, the track closed before we had that opportunity. But I miss being able to hear it at night. It was almost like as much of the landscape as the ocean in some ways, at least from a distance. But I appreciate John and Denise and others for pulling this together. Any other comments? Called vote then, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we do a picture real quick?
Yes, absolutely.